All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending. I know there are a lot of these webinars and seminars, and I think everybody gets a little inundated, but I think you'll find this one particularly interesting. Worth Avenue Yachts has a lot of depth and experience in private yacht vacations via chartering boats. And so today we're lucky to have Lori Eastis with us, our charter broker out of the Seattle office. We have Jenny Mullen, who is our charter manager for Worth Avenue Yachts. Got a wealth of experience there, and I believe she's managing about 16 boats right now. So she can describe the process of what's that like and the interaction between the principals, owners, crew, and the people who would like to charter the boat. And a little later, we'll have Fred Robinson joining us. Fred is a maritime attorney, also a tax specialist out of Seattle. So people are looking at putting their boat in charter, the ramifications and the legal parts of that. Fred is here to answer. He's really well versed in that. So between the three, I think you'll learn a lot about what it's like to charter a boat, and also the possibility of putting your boat in charter. So with that, I'll hand it off to Lori Eastis, who will open the gateway to the vacation of your dreams.
Thank you, Ray. Make sure that you don't log off the webinar, because you won't be able to log back in. They have it blocked. So if you leave and log out, you can't log back in. And it is being recorded, so you'll be able to see it later if you do have to log off and you miss anything. As a charter broker with Worth Avenue, my job is basically to facilitate your dream vacation. So I take you from the booking of the vacation through the completion of your vacation. I'm just going to run through a few of the things that we need to know, we need to do when you're booking your charter. First of all, if you reach out, most people reach out via website or a phone call and say, I want to charter in, let's say, the Bahamas. So the things that I need from the client in order to start looking for boats are pretty simple. I need to know where you want to go. So there is destinations all over the world. I don't just book in Seattle, I book all over the world. I have access to thousands of boats on MLS lists that are in beautiful destinations. So you can go to the French Polynesian, the Bahamas, the Caribbean, USVIs, the Mediterranean, if that opens back up. Places like Croatia and Italy are so popular. We can do Mexico is another popular destination at this point, and we can charter in the US. New England is very popular right now, Florida and the Florida Keys and the Northwest, so, and Alaska. So the destinations are endless, so don't feel like we just book Seattle trips out of the Seattle office. We can take you anywhere. So once we know your destination, we need a date range if you have exact dates or when you're looking to go, whether it's summer and you're flexible or whether you have very specific dates. I would need the dates. The next thing I need to know is how many guests you will have on the boat, because that determines the size of boat that I will look for. And one note that you should note is on a private yacht or private yacht charter, the maximum is 12 guests, whether the boat is 80 feet or whether the boat is 350 feet. You can only have 12 guests cruising on the charter. There are commercial boats that will do more than that, but a private yacht charter is a maximum of 12 people, and a lot of people don't realize that. Once you have your amount of people, it's good for me to know what the dynamic of the group is, whether it's 4 couples, if you have 8 people, if you have 4 couples and you need 4 staterooms that have 4 queen beds, that's a big deal. If you have children and you want bunk rooms that have twin beds in them. So knowing the dynamic of the group really helps in searching for the boat as well. Then we talk about your experience. Somebody says, I want to go to the Bahamas. Okay, do you want to go to the Bahamas and you want a boat that has a lot of toys, let's say, a slide, sea bobs, which dive under the water, jet skis, things like that? Or are you more interested in, let's say, the Med and going ashore and anchoring or mooring at a beautiful marina and then going and checking out the nightlife and that type of thing? So the experience that you're looking for also determines the boats that we'll look for you. And then last but not least is your budget, which is extremely important. So we need to know what you want to spend on your weekly charter. And on top of your weekly charter rate, you have what's called an APA. So we ask for a 35% APA. And an APA is an advanced provisioning allowance, and that covers your food, your beverage, your fuel, and your moorage while you're on the trip. And then on top of that, you have tax or VAT if you're over in Europe. And then you have a crew gratuity, which is not necessarily mandatory, but it's kind of typically, for good service, expected 10 to 20% of the charter rate, but it is at the charter's discretion. So once we get your budget, if I send you a boat that has a rate of $55,000 for a week, then if you figure about 50% more on top of that, you're about where you will be at the end of your charter. So that's really important. So once I have all that information, I will take that and plug in all of that criteria into the MLS list, and we'll come up with different boat options. I typically send 4 or 5 different boat options on the first round and see what people think. And it helps me understand the style you're looking for, whether you want something sleek and modern that goes fast, or whether you're more of a traditional boater and you like traditional type interiors. So it helps me narrow down the search. Once I send you the options, then from there, we go back. If you say, I like these 2 boats, I would then take those, go to those charter agents of those boats and ask them if the boat is available. If the boat is available during that time, we come back and send an offer. And at that point, it's not guaranteed that you've got the boat, but the charter agent will come back and say yes or no and accept your offer. Once the offer is accepted, then we go under contract and we send the contract via DocuSign, and you need to wire the money, 50% of the charter rate, wire the money upon signing the contract. Once the contract's signed and everything's taken care of on the deposit, then the fun part starts. Does anybody have questions about any of that process before I move on to booking once we've got that done? No questions? Okay. Once we have our contract in place, then we send you what's called our preference sheet. So Worth Avenue has a very extensive preference sheet, and it takes you through everything involved in your charter. So this is where we get to custom design your charter. We get all the information about all of the guests. We get their sizes if they're going to snorkel or scuba. We find out what food preferences you have, so the chef knows if there's something you absolutely hate, and we give you several options. You know, what kinds of fish do you like? What kinds of meat do you like? Do you want breakfast? You know, what time do you want breakfast? Do you want a buffet breakfast? Would you like a sit-down breakfast that's served to you? So you can tailor it however you want. I want to have a beach dinner, a beach setup. So the boat can take you ashore and have a beach setup and a bonfire, and there's endless options. If you're interested in having a theme party, the crews are phenomenal at setting theme tables and making great theme parties. I just had a charter complete that had a black and white party, and it was fantastic. So There's so many different options. And then once we get your preference sheets and you picked all your food, all your booze, everything that you want, your snacks, all of it, then I check, make sure there's nothing on there that is a question. And then I send that to the captain. And once the preference sheets goes to the captain, then the captain will typically take the time to have a phone call with the charter and myself, him, and possibly the chef to discuss places you want to go, your itinerary, what type of foods, if you want any of the theme parties, and create your own itinerary. You're in charge. So if you want to go certain places and you want to be on the hook the whole time, the captain can design that. If you want to go to shore twice or different ports, you can design that. So once we have your itinerary in place, which is very exciting, then we will take it to the next step and we produce an actual passport for you, and it gets sent to you and your guests. And in that passport, it gives you your contact information of myself, the captain, all of the terminology for the boat when you're on it. So, you know, port, starboard, all of that, your staterooms. It gives you the rules of the boat, you know, no shoes, things like that, different things that you'll experience. And it goes through your itinerary with a QR code so that you can click on that and see the area you're going to. We, from there, can arrange transportation to the yacht once you fly in, whether you fly in private jet, which we can connect you with private jet services, or you fly in commercially. They will pick you up, they'll take you to the yacht, and your adventure begins. During your time at sea, I will reach out and just check in, make sure everything's okay, but I'm also available if you have any questions that you can't get from the captain that you need from me. You can certainly always get a hold of myself or I guess whoever the charter agent is. I can find out information from them as well. And then when you complete your charter, the captain will go through your APA list. So you get a detailed list of everything they spent on fuel, moorage, all of your food, all of your beverage. And if you didn't spend the complete 35%, then you will get that money back, which you can use toward a tip, a gratuity, or you can have it wired back to you. So, and preferably, obviously, the crew loves a cash tip, but if you're not comfortable carrying that much cash with you, we can arrange to have it wired to the boat. So, I think that's pretty much everything on my end of booking your charter. It's pretty condensed because it takes a little bit longer than 15 minutes to do it, but that's everything I have. Any questions from anybody? Questions, Lindsay, or any of them? No? Okay.
Lori, this is Ray. Can you hear me still?
I can.
I think everyone has seen Below Decks and a lot of those shenanigans and all that they portray. But I think one thing from my perspective that I've been most impressed on the charter boats I've been on is just how professional the crew is. You know, a lot of them are multilingual and they have different skill sets. And I don't know if you mentioned it, but I think even somehow like Pilates instructors or dive masters with them. And it's just a very impressive list of credentials that I think people will be really impressed with.
Yes, that's true. Like we had one charter where the woman was really into fitness and she wanted to make sure that one of the crew could do yoga with her and a couple of her guests. So there are all sorts of credentials like that we can make sure that we have on the boat that you've chartered. So trainers, personal trainers, some of the large boats have golf pros on them and you can tee off the back of the boat. It's incredible. They have massage therapists, they have salons, they have, these boats are outstanding. It's like a city.
We have a question here.
Yeah.
This all sounds very expensive. Can you give a ballpark for what is needed for a week rental in a relatively
boat size, I would say that your range is, well, I think the lowest I've seen is around 35,000 starting for the week, and upwards of $1 million depending on the boat. But an average that most of my clients are around 55 for a week for a group of 8 to 10. And people go, wow, that's really expensive. But if you took a week and you went to the Four Seasons in Hawaii and you had a beautiful room, and then you split that, now you take your charter rate and you split it with 8 people or between four couples, it really equals out to about the same as going to a luxury resort, eating 3 meals a day out and doing all the adventures that you would do. So it's not as expensive as it sounds from the initial rate. Breaking it down, it's fairly affordable. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and the other thing there is, I'll chip in on that, is not only is it reasonable when compared to other options, but also if you look at some of these boats you're on, some of these boats are, $5 million boats, 20, 30, $40 million boats. So if you wanted to do it on your own and buy your own boat, we recommend that in the sales team, of course, but to get a taste of it via charter is a really an exceptional way to get access to these kind of boats that normally would be very difficult to access, especially for a family and friends vacation, right? Right, Lori?
Very true. A lot of people charter before they purchase so they can tell what type of boat they like, whether they like having a crew on board. So a lot of charter clients end up purchasing their own boat, but they'd like to experience it first in several different charters. So it is a gateway to definitely purchasing your yacht. So.
Okay. Any more questions for Lori?
No.
One more. The price quoted, does it include APA?
No. So the weekly rate, then you add 50%, and that'll cover approximately 50%. That will cover your APA, your tax, and not your gratuity, but your tax, APA and tax. So
The gratuity.
yeah, gratuity on top of that. So.
Okay, then we'll roll over to
Boats.
Jenny. We'll talk a little
we can
bit
find
about
boats in all different price ranges depending on what your budget is.
Hi there. My name is Jenny Malham, and I am charter manager here at Worth Avenue Yachts along with my colleague Selden. And so I manage about 10 to 12 yachts here right now. I think Selden has 4 or 5 that she manages. So what's involved in charter management? So if you're looking at buying a boat and you think, well, perhaps it would be nice to offset some of those expenses. Charter is a great way to do that. It's rarely that it would break even unless you have a great, charter program, but that's certainly something that, can offset a lot of the expenses. Plus, the other side of that is to really keep the boat moving, keep the crew happy, keep the boat moving. So if the boat's moving, then it keeps everything working, and it will also offset those expenses of you being tied to the dock. So for example, when you have a charter, that charterer will then be covering the cost of the dockage, and you won't be incurring those costs. So it's a good way, as I said, to offset some expenses. There's different ways of working through this, but usually I work with one of the sales brokers and the clients, and we will talk about where you want to be. I always like to say, focus on what you want. Where do you want the boat to be? What are your goals for having your yacht in charter? I think the reason that everyone gets into yachting because they want to have, quality family time, get away from work. Everyone works exceedingly hard, and I think it's important to, as we've seen in this last year or so, to really check back, with ourselves and enjoy what we've all worked so hard for. I find that I work with the charter, the yacht owner, and what we'll do is we'll go through a process. Once they've picked the yacht that they would like, or I'm absolutely happy to talk with them if they're picking between a few different boats of which ones I would recommend on the charter market. Here in Fort Lauderdale, I have a lot of boats that are based here in Florida, and we'll charter either here in Florida and in the Bahamas. We also have boats in the Med, and also working on the West Coast and all over. As far as the income goes, there's three, we'll rewind a little bit. There are three major MLS systems that we advertise on, as well as various other partners and online places that we advertise the boats. We have a super marketing team, and they do a great job working on the SEOs and social media. So we're, as well as print. So we market it from every angle. What I do as the charter manager is we set up the charter listing online, and we work with you. We'll get photography and videography of the boat. I think that's really important these days, obviously, to have the videography also in order to present the boat and really show, what are you looking for? Everyone wants that lifestyle, and to see what kind of vacation that they're going to have. I find that once we've picked out the boat, and got her online, then we will work with you and the captain to decide where the boat's going to be based, what sort of itinerary that you want to offer, as well as the price. And then the main thing is to work on the calendar. The biggest problem I find is not knowing, the dates that the owner wants to use the boat. So it really helps to have very good, clear communication about when the boat is or isn't available. Obviously, the prime times like Christmas, New Year, they're all very, very popular and the first to book. So if those can be available, then you will absolutely increase your revenue. So we also offer open houses with the crew, so that the retail brokers are able to see the boat and get a feel of what the crew has to offer, what the yacht looks like, and then they can go back and reassure their clients that this is a good quality boat and a well-run program. As far as crew goes, I prefer to have a full-time crew, but understand that, the costs of keeping on a full-time crew, can get expensive. So we find a lot of our yachts will run with the team players, depending on the size of the boat, and perhaps bring on a deckhand or an extra stewardess for charters, or perhaps a freelance chef. However, I do find the ones with a full-time crew that really get a good team together perform much better. They book more, and they definitely create more revenue. So once we come to contract, so as a charter manager, I will negotiate the contract price. You and I, as the owner, will chat and set the parameters of, if there's any flexibility in the charter fee that we've set. Some owners will just say, no, this is the base price, and that nothing beyond that. Others are more commercially minded and say, well, we've got a couple of weeks here, I'd like to fill those in, I can't use the boat myself, we'll offer a discount. So the retail broker like Laurie would come to me and say, hey, I see that you still, have these weeks open next month, I can book those. How about, a 5% discount or a 10% discount? And we can work together and negotiate those discounts, which is, sometimes it's better to take something rather than nothing. But obviously, I'm always pushing for you as the owner to get the full price. We also like to cover expenses such as repositioning fees. It's often something that owners ask about. charter clients generally don't like to pay a repositioning fee if the boat's available in the Bahamas for charter. They don't want to pay for it to get from Florida to the Bahamas. However, the cost of fuel, and at some point, we need to work with that to make sure that we cover those costs for you. Once we've agreed on the price and we've agreed on the dates and the number of guests and all those, the ports, of embarkation and disembarkation, then we'll go to contract. There's several contracts out there, and depending on the flag of the vessel or where the boat's located, there's a MEBA, which is the Mediterranean Yacht Brokers Association. There's an AYCA, which is the American Yacht Charters Association, and then there's also a Caribbean one also. But those are the main ones that we deal with. We will go through the contract, which are set industry contracts, and I will obviously go through those with you before we proceed down the road to going to final signature. We can also add certain things into those contracts if you have any specific requests. For example, most of my yachts, we do have no shoes allowed inside. We expect people with some of the very new white clean modern boats that have white upholstery. We don't allow red wine in the main salon, for example. Just things to protect your investment and to make sure that the clients are respectful and they understand that, should something happen and, that glass of wine just gets spilled, this, that, and the other, that they are expected to cover those costs for any damage incurred. But hopefully, for the most part, we find that our clients are very respectful. We do vet them. We do try and make sure that they have chartered before, or we get references from them. We definitely check the background of who's coming in to make sure that we're getting the right clientele on board your boat. We're not looking to do so much of the party boats in Miami or the likes that you might have seen on Below Deck. So main thing to know is that, we are here to protect your asset and your interests in your yacht. So as far as what you will net, so as Laurie mentioned, a typical charter fee, for example, for my 100 feet, 112 yachts is in the 55,000 range for a Bahamas boat. And of that, you will net 80%. 5% goes to the house for the charter marketing, which is what I do in my marketing team. And then 15% goes to the retail client, the retail broker who brings the client, who has that client. So that's the split on the charter fee. So you will net 80% of the charter fee. The APA that Laurie mentioned, the advanced provisioning allowance, is purely belonging to the charterer. That's their money, and the captain should account to the charterer for those directly. Beyond that, we'll also make sure that any sales tax or anything that is due is paid on your behalf, and we'll make sure that all those things relating to that are taken care of, and you meet all the required documentation, etc. We also, where is it going? As far as the payments to you, we will find that if it's a long-term charter or a term charter, more than a few days, then 50% of the net proceeds are paid out on the first day of the charter, and the client embarking. And then the final balance is paid on the business day following the charter terminating. So that's how those payments are made. It's important that the captain has a good dialogue with myself. I always say that I'm available 24/7 if there's any issues, if the client's acting up. The captain has, the sole ability to end the charter if they are doing anything bad, misusing the boat, or with drugs or anything like that. Then the captain has full authority. But I do say it's absolutely important that the captain speaks with me so we protect you and the interests, and as far as what is written in the contract and how to deal with those incidences, should there be anything. But for the most part, we are very successful in keeping clients and owners and crew happy. It's a win-win situation for everybody. The clients get a great vacation, the owner makes some money, and the client, the crew get a little gratuity. So it keeps everybody, we're all motivated for everyone to have a successful charter. Laurie, is there something that I'm missing?
Not that I could think of. Can you, as an owner, can you determine how many, like you can say, I'm only going to charter 30 days out of the year?
Absolutely. So it's a conversation that we'll have at the beginning of, and obviously it's able to change at any time. You just let me know how many weeks of charter that you wish to book and when, and I will do my best to make that happen. It's, like I said, very important that we have good communication. I won't bother you on a daily basis. And I try to communicate very much with the captains to leave the owners alone, because I know that they're very busy. However, I will call you and find out, okay, you know, is this date available? Sometimes the captains can be like, oh, I'm not sure we can make that, but I know that the owner is keen on booking a charter, so I will always deal directly with the owner as well.
So as an owner, I say, I want to block out the whole month of August because I'm going to use that.
Absolutely, that's absolutely your absolutely up to them. Not a problem at all. I just need to know which dates to block out, and we will work around that. Now, obviously, if you're going to book out the whole of August in New England, then you're going to miss out on some of the prime time of booking charters out of Newport, perhaps. However, you know, as long as you're realistic and realize, you know, that you're cutting out that's fine. You want to enjoy those times too with your family, so that's absolutely not a problem. We always work around. I have owners that like to do 10, 12 plus weeks a year, and I have some that we only want to do 4 to 6. So it's absolutely fine. I'm happy to help and just make sure that everyone has a good time and an easy and hassle-free experience with charter.
So where do you do the marketing of the boat so that people can see it?
So we have 3 main MLS databases that we use, which are Yachtfolio, Charter Index, and Central Yacht Agency. We also have several others that we advertise on, James Edition, and we also work through Super Yacht Times, as well as Boat International, and as well as other things in print, and we work with our social media and everything else too. But for the main part, the client may do their own research and pick out boats, and then we'll pick out the charter broker and say, hey, you know, I like the look of this boat, you know, is it available? And it perhaps is, or maybe it isn't. But the charter broker will pick that boat, make sure it's available for their dates. But it should also present other yachts that are similar in the same category and in the same price range. And that's, you know, the mark of a good charter broker that knows their inventory and will make sure that you get the right fit for you. So what's, you know, works for one family with, you know, 4 young boys might not be the same thing that works for 4 older couples. So every boat's different, and captains and personalities are different. So the reason that we hold open houses, which we do on a monthly basis here in Bahia Mar, and they also have them around the country. We have them usually in normal times in the Mediterranean in Barcelona, and we also have one in Antigua in December. But that gives the charter brokers a chance to come and view the yachts and take a look at the inventory and meet the crew and just check that the boats are up to scratch. So we like to make sure that we are offering the best product to our clients.
Yeah, no, one thing I wanted to mention, the sales team often gets questions from prospective buyers about what boat might be best for charter and then what possibly the revenue might be. So questions like that with our team of Jenny and Lori and your sales team, we can quickly assess what that boat would bring in charter. And also, they can also tell you how many crew it may need. So they're pretty good at that. The database is really strong and they can come up with an assessment pretty quickly.
Absolutely. So if anyone is interested in putting their boat into charter, please contact Ray or the team at Worth Avenue in Seattle, and then we can work with them, and absolutely happy to present different options of what that particular boat would be and what they would expect to fetch in the charter market.
Great. Yes, we need charter boats in Seattle. There's a huge demand here. So if you're a Northwest boater, we have a large demand weekly of people that want to charter in the San Juans, and there just aren't a lot of boats available here. So if anybody's interested in putting their boat on charter or buying a boat that might be a little bit of a stretch goal, but then offsetting it with charter, absolutely let us know, because we can book it all day long.
Absolutely. And I would note there that boats in your area, Lori, command a little bit of a premium because there is such a lack of inventory up there. So
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I had a call today of somebody that wanted 12 people on a boat for a week in the San Juans, and we just don't have any boats that size here. So if anybody's interested, it's a great way to upgrade your boat.
Okay. All right, very good information. Are there any more questions for Jenny before we move on to Fred Robinson?
Nope.
Okay, any offers on boats that you want to put in charters, No? Okay. All right, well, Fred, I think you're online, so we'll hand the baton off to you.
Okay. I just want to make sure it's working. You can hear me okay?
Yep, we can
Okay.
hear you.
What's that?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, this is, hello, everyone. This is, this is incredible timing for this program. And I'll explain why in just a minute, but it's, there's some changes coming through on the Washington State sales and use tax side that have, so I guess I'm explaining it right now rather than waited a few minutes, but there's some changes that are coming through on the Washington State sales and use tax side that have passed the House this session, 97-0. And it's changes that we've been working on in one form or another for over the last 13 years. We started working on this in 2008 when the economy slumped, and we were really concerned about trying to create jobs in the state of Washington. And our sub-industry, the larger yacht side of boating here, really was trying to figure out how we could bring more boats in here and generate revenue in the state and generate boating activity, and specifically in the charter context. And the change that worked its way through the House and was passed about 10 days ago at 97-0, that did propose a change. And then after that, even though the group had been working with the Department of Revenue here in the state for about a year and given them advance notice of what we were doing, they did not, they had not objected to anything we were doing, but after it passed the House, they did pop their head up and say, well, we do have a few issues with it. And that's okay at this point, because the issues that they raised were actually, for the most part, pretty constructive and made sense, and something that we hadn't really thought about. So we got good input. And then over about the last 5 days, a group of us in the state, a few lobbyists, myself staying pretty much in the background, just providing technical assistance to the lobbyists, and then working with several people from the Department of Revenue. They have really just in the last hour reached a tentative agreement on how to resolve those issues so that when the vote on this legislation with some changes from the House version goes to the Senate here, the Department of Revenue will, I don't know that they'll support it, but they won't object to it. And that will open the way for the Senate to pass it. The House will adopt whatever changes the Senate passes because they're constructive and we agree with them. And then it'll go to the governor's desk. So this would come to a vote in the Senate in about 2.5 weeks and then go to the governor's desk. We believe the governor will sign it. There's certainly no guarantee, but we've got a lot of momentum with it. So it's just, I just can't believe how fortuitous it is and how good the timing was in terms of the boat show and the West Palm Beach boat show coming up, because again, we've been working on this for 13 years. And so to give you a little background on what that change is, under current law, entity-owned boats can be in the state of Washington for up to 60 days a year. And an entity-owned boat up to 164 feet in length can get 2 additional 60-day permits to stay in the state. And let me just clarify, these are non-resident owned boats. So if it's an entity-owned boat and it's a Washington entity or owned by a Washington beneficial owner, sales or use taxes due on the boat at the time it's purchased or when it's first brought into the state. But what I'm referring to here is non-resident owned boats. The non-resident owned boats could stay in the state for up to 60 days a year. And then within every 3 years, they could buy 2 permits to stay an additional 60 days in any 1 year. Well, the change in the law that's working its way through now would allow those entity-owned boats to buy 2 additional permits every year. They would not have to, they're not limited to just buying 2 permits in a 3-year period plus the 60 days every year. So a non-resident entity-owned boat could be in the state of Washington and be here for 60 days a year and get 2 60-day permits every year. Of course, that gives them 8 months in the state of Washington. What the permit does is it eliminates the need to pay use tax on the fair market value of the boat if sales tax was not paid on the boat in another jurisdiction. So it's a great change that will allow not only the entity-owned boats to come in here for longer periods of time, but that same law also applies to individually owned boats. Individually owned boats, it does with respect to a charter component, but individually owned boats can be in the state for 60 days a year, plus they can buy, under current law, they can buy 2 permits every year and not have to be gone. So the entity under this proposal, the entity-owned boats now would track what the individually owned boats can do. The big change, talking specifically on the charter side, is this. I know that the discussion earlier was, or I presume it was in part about bareboat charters versus skipper charters. Could I just see a nod of the head of the people on my screen if there was some discussion of that? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a very important, historically, there's been a very important Washington state tax component that restricted the ability of the larger boats to come in here and charter, because on the larger boats, the owners, of course, wouldn't want to charter those boats unless their captain and crew were on the boat and in control of the boat. Well, under the proposal, in the case of an entity-owned boat, in the entity-owned boat and an individually owned boat coming into the state that's owned by a non-resident, if the captain and crew is provided by the owner, so it's a skipper charter, that no longer creates the Washington state use tax exposure for tax on the fair market value of the boat. What it does is the owner of the boat will have to pay use tax based on the charter amount for the use of the boat while it's under charter in the state. So let me just be clear on that. It's the owner will pay a use tax on the charter value of the boat while it's under lease in the state in a skippered charter.
So
Now,
they would pay, if you had a $5,500 charter, basically, you would only pay the tax on that.
that's right. Let's just assume, let me just give you an example to firm that up. Let's say you've got $1 million boat. Let's say the weekly charter in the state of Washington is, let's pick a figure, $20,000. In the case of the non-resident owned boat, under current law, if it was a skippered charter and tax had not been paid by the owner on that boat outside the state of Washington, then the tax on the boat that would apply would be roughly 10% of the fair market value of the boat, or $100,000 that the owner would have to pay. Under the proposal that's working its way through, if the boat charters for $20,000 a week, the owner would have to pay $2,000 of tax on that boat to charter it for a week in the state of Washington. So it's, you can see it's a huge change in the law, just phenomenal change in the law.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, let me point out that also, now this is the tax on the owner, and the theory there is that the owner, because it's a skipper charter, the owner is using the boat in providing a service, a charter service, a business activity for people to be able to charter the boat in the state. It's not simply a bare lease where the other person's using the boat, but the owner is providing a charter package. And that's why a tax applies in the first instance. But under this proposal that we anticipate going through and passing the Senate now in about 2.5 weeks, and we're optimistic the governor's going to sign it, it would reduce the tax in that situation down to the tax on the reasonable rental value or the tax on $20,000. So about $2,000 for each of those for a 1 week charter in the state of Washington. And the other change here is that on those charter boats, many of them are most of the boats are in, charter boats are owned in an entity for liability protection purposes. It's something that's really very important. And with the other change in the law, those charter boats then could be in the state of Washington chartering for up to 180 days in any 6-month period. So essentially 180 days in any year. The reason I describe it as a monthly period, it's actually 180 days in the 12-month period, because it's not simply a January through a December 31st date count. You're always looking, I guess, back 365 days as to where you're, when you're doing your date count. But the larger picture is they can be in the state chartering for up to 8 months a year. They will not have to pay the use tax on the fair market value of the boat. They would pay a use tax based on at about 10% on what the charter revenue is for the charter component of the boat itself, not the additional supplies and provisioning that goes with it. So it's really it's a huge change up here and phenomenal timing. Let me see if I've got anything else that I want to touch on with that. There are a lot of smaller points that go with it, but that's really the broad picture, and that's really the takeaway here. When would this become effective? Assuming the governor signs it into law and it passes the Senate, it would be July 1st of this coming summer. And let's see here. The other part is for entity-owned boats, whether they're used in charter or not, there's a 2-step process for bringing these boats in the state of Washington. Under current law, for an entity-owned boat to come into the state of Washington and be here for more than 60 days a year, so you're going for one of the 2 permits you can get in any 3-year period, there is a 2-step process. You first get an approval permit from the Department of Revenue, where the owner or the owner's representative goes forward and presents to the Department of Revenue sufficient information that the Department of Revenue can tell that the beneficial owner is not a resident of the state of Washington. And their concern is primarily with respect to the boats that are owned in foreign entities, with the confidentiality provisions that the department can never be able to track information down from those parties. And they don't want Washington residents to hide behind the non-resident entity and then use their boat in the state of Washington. So that's the way the law reads currently. In the case of, for boats that are in entities and boats that will be used for charter in the state of Washington, there continues to be that two-step process with going first to the Department of Revenue to get the approval. And once the Department of Revenue issues the approval letter confirming that it is not a non-resident beneficiary who's beneficial owner who's behind the boat, then the permit is actually gotten from the Department of Licensing. So I see a few faces on the screen. Is that pretty clear to you? And are there questions on that? I want to keep it pretty basic.
Is there any questions, Lindsay?
No questions as of now.
So if somebody is looking at putting it into charter, we can put them in touch with you and you can go through all the legality with them and.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy to talk to anybody about it, give them a general overview and see if it looks like it's going to work for them. But it certainly should.
Fantastic.
One other thing for the larger boats, you know, the larger boats under current law, they could come in, they could be in the state, but not for skipper charter without the tax kicking in. But those larger boats could get these extension permits if they were up to 164 feet in length. The length limitation is being expanded under this new law too, from 164 feet in length up to 200 feet in length.
Nice.
So.
Okay. Anything else? Ray, can you think of anything? Are you muted? Ginny, no? Nobody? Well, if we,
I was just,
You, can you hear me
go
now?
ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to say if there's any questions for Fred, now's the time. Free legal advice. You don't get that very often, so don't hesitate to reach out. He may even be able to do a tax return or something really quick. Fred's pretty good, so don't hesitate to ask.
Hi, hi panelists. This is Katie. Looks like we have a question in the Q&A. I'm not sure if this was answered. How does the cost of the crew or captain fit into the equation? And how does this impact the insurance needs?
Is that question directed to me?
I think that might be a Jenny question.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you get that?
I'm trying to find the question. Can you say that again, please, Katie?
How does the cost of the crew or captain fit into the equation? And how does this impact the insurance needs?
Okay, so with all the boats that come into charter, they need to be insured for charter. Some will only be insured for maybe limited charter, or generally they are insured for limited charter. So it will depend on the policy that you get, and obviously, the more charters that you do, that is going to push up your premiums somewhat. But generally, that offsets the charter fee, and the income will offset that to a large extent. With regarding the crew, majority, it depends on the type of boat that you have, and if we're working under a bareboat agreement, or if we're working under a crewed time charter. The crew is on the time charters, the term charters, the crew are included within that charter fee. And so that needs to be addressed as far as the costs of that crew coming out of your net proceeds there. So it just really depends on the boat and the size and how many crew and the type of charter. So with bareboat charters, then it will be a charter fee for the vessel, and then there'll be additional crew services, vessel services agreement, which would cover the cost of the crew. So it depends on the type of the boat and whether they have to run under that contract or if they can run under a single page contract. Fred, do you want to elaborate on the contracts at all?
Well, actually, let me just comment on that question from the tax side under this proposed law. It looks to me like under the so on the 1 week charter for $20,000, if you figure the crew component there is, let's say 15% of that, and 85% is the component for the use of the boat itself. Under Washington law, in terms of under this proposed legislation, I believe that the tax component would just be on the 85% for the value of the essentially the lease of the boat, and not on the crew component. In terms of contracts in general, Jenny, what did you have in mind? I mean, I could comment on contracts, but
I mean, I was just wanted to explain that, you know, if you're a foreign built boat, perhaps that if the boat was not built in the US, then
sure.
then
So
if it's more than 3 years old, they can apply for a merit waiver.
right. So one of the requirements for crude charters is this actually goes way back to the 1920s, late 1920s. So post World War I, when the United States really became aware that we needed to have a strong naval presence, or not so much, yes, a naval presence, but a strong shipbuilding industry here, a law was adopted that it provided that if any boat was going to be used for commerce in the United States, whether it's hauling passengers or crew for hire, and it's stopping between two ports in the United States, contiguous ports with stops, the boat has to be built in the US. And the reason of that, again, was to promote the US shipbuilding industry and keep it alive and healthy for when we went to war, which of course became important just 20 years later with the Second World War. But so if you've got a foreign built hull, on the face of, so to be able to haul to be able to carry passengers or cargo, and in our context, we're talking passengers for hire in the United States, we need a US built hull. But there's an exception to that if the boat is at least 3 years old and the owner can go for a MARAD waiver from the Maritime Administration that's very easy to get, takes about 3 months to get, and the permit is only $500. And a foreign built hull can be used for charter in the US as long as one of these permits are gotten. The only place in the US that I'm aware of that the permit will not be allowed for use is in southeastern Alaska, but it will be, the permit will be granted routinely for use in the state of Washington, and I believe up and down the East Coast. It's only, and Jenny, you would know that on the East Coast, but it's only southeastern Alaska where those restrictions are given.
That's correct.
Hi, everyone. This is the Northwest Yacht Brokers team. I just wanted to say that I do have to cut this a little short. Right now, we are at our hour mark, and we do have another seminar coming up here in 2 minutes, a minute now. So if any of the attendees online right now would like to log into our Boat Buyers University seminar that's happening in a minute, you can register at our Facebook page. You can find the links on our Facebook page, Boats Afloat Show, or on our Instagram page, Boats Afloat Show. But thank you to our speakers today, to Worth Avenue and to Robinson Law Firm. Any closing comments from you all?
No, thank you for participating. If anybody needs to get a hold of us, you can reach us at Worth Avenue Yachts, Seattle, and we can answer any questions.
Yeah, Lori, Jenny, Fred, appreciate all your help and your time. So it was very informative.
Thank you. And if you've
Thank
got
you.
any questions for me, it's Robinson Law Firm in Seattle.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you, everyone.
you.
Yeah.
Bye.